Right, welcome back to another video. Um, another collection video as we keep them rolling. I've been recording them in batches of two, and this will be the second day of doing it. So then I'll probably do this one as well after this, and then that'll be for tomorrow, these two. So, and then I'm rolling them out each week, so uploading them and then just setting it to upload a week in the future, just so it gives people time to watch the previous ones and such. And yeah, we're almost at the end of it, and then we can start doing some other stuff. But where we left off last time was Resident Evil 2 remake, if I'm not mistaken. So we have Resident Evil 4. This is the remake, of course. Um, Unfortunately, it seems like mine doesn't shut. Not sure what's happened there. But really enjoyed this remake. Incredible effort on Capcom's part. They really have mastered what it feels like, what you need to accomplish a remake, if that makes sense. Um, I still need to go back and do Ada's DLC on it. Separate Ways, I think it was called. But other than that, I beat the campaign and absolutely loved it. Um, as I said before, I really want them to take a crack at Resident Evil 1 remake and bring that and give it the same kind of touch-up treatment that the other games have gotten. So, boy, the voice is already given out. Oh, right. I'd need to clean the case up, of course. This was from a CEX, as you can kind of guess. It has so many beautiful stickers on it. But yeah, a game that kind of gets a little bit of shade thrown its way, and I don't know. I I enjoyed aspects of this kind of DNA of Resident Evil, this kind of era, as it were, because this and I'll do these two. So these two, Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 5, kind of have the same core DNA with each other. There is a little bit of difference in Resident Evil 6 where they give you a ton of different um like characters to choose from, different storylines. But this was like the continuation of what Resident Evil 4 was setting out to do with the campy horror melding in with the action stuff. And like, don't get me wrong, I definitely prefer the direction of the newer Resident Evils, with it being a lot more serious, and they put a lot more budget into it and just make it a lot more horror centric rather than the action that these do. But these still have a place, I think. Um, I think Resident Evil could do a thing where they could do the best of both worlds, really have something like that on the sideline, because I don't think they would take very long to pump out if they were to like scale it back, maybe do like a 8 to 10 hour thing and just do some absurd shit. And then we have so we got two more Resident Evils, with this being one. Operation Raccoon City. I like aspects of this game, but it's is extremely flawed from top to bottom. It follows parallel to the events of Resident Evil 2, basically, and it's kind of like a what if scenario because you end up running into Claire and Leon later on down the line in the final mission. And it actually gives you options as to what happens with the ending, which was kind of surprising for a Resident Evil game, giving you like a choice at the end, and then it gives you a completely different mission after that. But not a very good game overall, unfortunately. Um, Resident Evil 7, for many people, the Resident Evil that was a return to form for the series. They kind of went straight back to the drawing board and really emphasized horror. Even on the back, it says horror comes home. Like this was at the forefront of what they were trying to push. And Yeah, it's a very, very, very good game. Tons of replayability. The only problem I have, and I think quite a few people have as well, Ethan isn't particularly interesting as a character overall. He's not the worst character the series has ever had, but hopefully so it'll be Resident Evil 9 next. Hopefully with Resident Evil 9 they move away from Ethan and do something with, you can either make a new character and take a crack at it or just go back to, the tried and true method of Claire, Chris, Leon, somebody. So yeah. So next up, Resonance of Fate. This is one I really, really I keep meaning to start it, but I remember seeing it on wow, what was the guy's name? Channel Eric Landon, I believe. He does a ton of coverage with JRPGs and stuff, and this was one that he showed footage of, and I think it's one he doesn't enjoy himself. But when I saw it and saw just the crazy battle system that it employs in the game, I just knew that I had to give it a go. And I think, unfortunately, it's one of the ones that didn't get backwards compatible. That's why I'm dragging my feet so much. Because going back to a 360 now, it's definitely rough from from the quality of life improvements that stuff like the Series X gives you with loading times and just polish and everything. But yeah, it's like a cinematic uh, shooter, but like mixing it in with like a turn-based JRPG. It's meant to be. It's kind of crazy. It's very, very unique. Next up, Ride to Hell Retribution 1%. Oh boy. This got absolutely torn to shreds. It's one I haven't played myself. This was, I think, one of the final games before the 360 store closure happened that I grabbed. And I remember watching Yahtzee's review back in the day from Zero Punctuation. Absolutely dump on this game, big time. And it definitely has a reputation. I'll probably dive in and try it out at some point, but not particularly in all that much of a rush to do so. Riders Republic up next. Kind of a weird one for Ubisoft. People love to throw shade at Ubisoft for not being experimental and trying different stuff, and they do stuff like this every now and then, where it's this isn't a standard cookie cutter open world thing. This is it's fairly unique. Gives you all different types of transportation, skiing, what do you call it? Snowboarding, bikes, wingsuiting. Like there's tons and tons of options here. I don't think anybody really cared when it dropped. That's why I have a hard time believing that if they brought back something like SSX, it would actually do well. I think people think that they want it and stuff like that, and it's a thing where it's so hard for something like that to get right nowadays with so many games having so much depth, and then you have constantly the cost of price of the game and time value and stuff like that. We've kind of moved away from how people viewed games, 10, 15, 20 years ago, where it didn't really you didn't feel bad if you jumped into a game and put 2 hours in because it was if you enjoyed it and you had fun with that, that was the whole point. But now if you had Resident Evil 3's remake, which on average took people, 5 to 6 hours to beat, and that got heavily criticized for being very, very short, even though it's an extremely polished product. So, just a fault there. Um, should have probably. I'll save that for another. I'll do my other collector's editions, but that's Risen 2's like special edition because I've got all the Risen games here. That's why I was going off on that. So we have Risen 1. which was a 360 exclusive. I don't know if this ever made its way over to PS3 at all during its entire life cycle. But this was Piranha Bytes kind of maybe they're in a moment where they were trying to do what BioWare did, where BioWare had like the success with like Knights of the Old Republic and stuff and Jade Empire, and then was like, yeah, we'll go do our own like Dragon Age and stuff. We want like that kind of thing. I think that Risen was their next thing that they were hoping was going to be the thing that banked them big time. I don't know if that mouse is on the screen. I need to move that. um, and it did okay. The original 360 port is woeful though. Like every single time you end up getting a kill on an enemy, the game stutters while it generates the XP and stuff like that. And even with all of that, I stuck by it on the original 360. I beat this before it got backwards compatible on the 360. I played through it from top to bottom on a 360 and beat it. And it's just Eurojank has something of a hold over me. It's just something that I just enjoy the passion and the fault and the ambition. They just never seem to like land on it and stuff. Um, this is just the same. This is just Risen 1. They re-released it for modern consoles. They did a tiny bit of tidying up, but it's basically the same experience. They didn't really change all that much, so I need to dwell on that one. But Risen 3, so like I said, Risen 2's back there. So I'll talk about that another time. But Risen 3, the conclusion to the series, um, it was it was something. I enjoyed Risen 2 and its switch up to focus on like a pirating adventure and stuff like that because we don't really get many pirate games. And then this was like because you had Risen 1, which was like traditional fantasy kind of things, and then you had Risen 2 where it did the whole pirating adventure and mixed in like voodoo magic. And then Risen 3 was both of them kind of melding together a little bit and dipping into like it says magic is back and stuff. I I don't know. It's not terrible, but I think if I ranked the series, it would probably be Risen 2, 1, then 3 for me personally. So, ooh. Risk of Rain 2 also includes Risk of Rain 1. Um, I did finish a run on Risk of Rain 1 and enjoyed it an okay amount. It's a the first game is 2D side scrolling kind of thing. And then Risk of Rain 2, you could tell how popular Risk of Rain 1 ended up being because they absolutely blew it out of like the park with budget. Gives it like a full 3D, you're exploring environments and stuff. So it's just a you're constantly fighting through hordes of monsters, and there's a timer in the top screen building up. And the longer the run goes on, the harder the game gets. And you're basically just trying to blitz through areas, build up items, level yourself up, power up a teleporter, move on to the next stage. It's a really good roguelike. Um, it's been, excuse me, it's been supported by Gearbox quite a lot, and Hopu Games, I think is what they're called. With a few DLCs now, I think it's had about two or three, and it's a lot of fun. Definitely check it out if you haven't. Um, well, I think we touched upon this in the last episode as well. Stuff like movie tie-ins and TV shows. So this is a movie. I don't know if it's a tie-in because I've never watched the Jason Bourne films ever, but it's very similar to like James Bond, isn't it? It's kind of that whole spiel. Um, but it's actually not a bad game. It's not like an extremely good game, but it's not actually bad for what probably budget they ended up kicking Sierra's way to make this game and High Moon. It's it's decent. It has a cool little story, and it doesn't overstay its welcome, and that's the thing that's important. Just I would love to have a return of these kind of like short games that are like 8 hours, and then you're in and out, and then you move on to the next one. Right, RoboCop, Rogue City, the follow-up title from the Terminator game that they did. This was I don't know who made this. Teon, is it? Published by Nacon. Um, I 100%ed both this and Terminator. I didn't. I think RoboCop is the better made game of the two, but I've never ever been interested in RoboCop. I've always been a Judge Dredd kind of fan over that. So the actual stuff, because I never watched the movies, nothing. I'm sure there's tons of references and like love put into this game that does nods and Easter eggs and stuff. It didn't do all that much for me, but it's an incredibly well-made game. Like this is what we need like more of. This is the kind of quality when I'm talking about like newer movie tie-in games and stuff like that. This is the kind of stuff that I'd love for them to keep putting out and releasing. And at the complete opposite end of the spectrum is Rustler. This is no shade thrown its way. I think they they name it Grand Theft Auto. It's basically inspired by the original Grand Theft Autos, but you're in like medieval. I think it's England, I believe, is when it where it's set, and it has some wacky stuff going on in this game. It's very it pushes comedy, mixing in that kind of stuff, and yeah, there was another game. What was it called? Nah, there was another game that did a more like 1970s approach to a game like this. I don't know if it's the same developer, but I did beat that other one. It was like a crime game, whereas this is obviously a medieval explore a historically inaccurate sandbox. So it's the one I need to get back to. Haven't finished it, but I did enjoy what I ended up playing of it. As per usual, put them down there, move all these up. All right, next up, the Saboteur. This may have been, I'm not 100% sure, this may have been Pandemic's final game that they made. Um, not too sure on that. It dropped in, I don't know, it says 2009. They may have kicked out another title after this. I'm not entirely sure, but this was the beginning of their spiral, unfortunately. I think people didn't really care. And it's one of them things where when you talk about it now, there are so many people that are like, oh my God, hidden gem, hidden gem. Um, wish like it got more love and stuff because it is very creative. Um, I didn't play too much of it, but I remember it's set in Paris during, what is it, World War II. It's under Nazi occupation. The really, really cool thing about it is it's entirely in black and white until you like liberate the district, and that adds the color back. And that was like a really cool like touch that they did. But yeah, one that I need to end up finishing in the near future. Really weird series this. Sacred. So right. Sacred 2 and 3. A very weird one because this kind of plays like a almost a Diablo like in a way of like an action RPG kind of thing. And you're just exploring like this open world-esque thing, kind of similar to maybe Titan Quest in a way, but not. It's not a one-to-one, but it's kind of very similar. And I didn't get too far in this one either. Um, it's one that I do want to end up booting back up and diving back into. It feels definitely because it has co-op functionality. It feels like it definitely had that in mind. Not something that you'd really explore on your own. I don't know what on earth. Like, yeah, it's this is a different developer from the second game, and it's completely different. This, I remember seeing parts of it and being like, what on earth did they do? Because they turned it into an arcade hack and slash, and they just shoehorn in like unnecessary humor, and it's just really, it's just bad. There's no really other way of saying it. It's bad. It sold bad. It got reviewed badly. Like that kind of fully put the nail in the coffin for their series as a whole. Oh boy, what a stack! The good old Saints Row series. So we'll start off with the first game. This was when would this have released? 2006. So 2006, Volition kind of look over their shoulder and like, "Ooh, we could make a GTA clone." And just really lean into like absurdity and customization and stuff. And it comes out and it's very, very split. There are people that love it and other people that really don't like it. I'm not the biggest fan of Saints Row 1. I think it's okay. Then they doubled down. They released the sequel, Saints Row 2, and you could definitely feel that the first game was like a wobble and like we don't really know what we're doing here. We're kind of testing the waters. This felt like they kind of understood the assignment. It's a massive step up, and it still keeps itself rooted relatively in in reality for stuff, but it's still, you know, they've got some absurd moments in the game. And then they just went off the deep end here for better or worse. This was the thing where it definitely split. It's kind of like the similar thing with them doing Assassin's Creed Origins, for instance, and splitting a lot of the Assassin's Creed fan base down the middle. They just went completely batshit insane in Saints Row 3. You have massive twists in the plot. The the opening is iconic with like the bank robbery. They rob the bankers themselves. Like it's just very, very tongue in cheek. But I love it. I prefer this. It's crazy. Um, and then this was it. And the thing uh I sympathize with Volition because it was every release got more and more absurd every single time. And they just got crazier and crazier. And then they just came to Saints Row 4, the President of the United States, you have superpowers, there's aliens, and they just escalated, 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 and then it kind of got to the point where they wrapped up that, and it's just like, well, where do we go? There's nowhere really where we can go, and then they landed on the reboot, and this is the thing. I don't like the reboot for its tone, its writing and stuff, all of that. But at the same time, as I said, I really do sympathize because it's kind of like I don't think they ever were going to live up to the how do you continue a torch from Saints Row 4? Like you've set the tone that high and then you're gonna yank it all the way back down and try to heavily base yourself back in reality again. It was never gonna work. And that there are even really stupid missions in this, don't get me wrong. But it's just even writing and quality aside, it's just something I don't think they were ever gonna pull off, unfortunately. So, but before I move on, I'd probably say Saints Row 3 is my favorite, and Saints Row 1 would be my least favorite. I can't really give too heavily of an opinion on the reboot. I didn't play all that much of it, so I'll spare it my wrath for now. Sandland, very very weird one. This created by Akira Toriyama, I believe the guy who did Dragon Ball series, right? Unfortunately, he's passed away now. Um, very very stylish, and it's meant to be based on another series, I believe, of mangas that he made of Sandland. I've never read them, so can't 100% confirm that. But yeah, I've only played like the opening 2 to 3 hours of this. It's cool though, really interesting. Heavy like vehicle, like based in vehicle and traveling with its combat and stuff. Definitely one to get back to. Um, Unfortunately, I don't think it sold particularly well. I don't think many people really were interested in it. And I don't think that's because of the quality of the product. I think it just didn't, there was just not all that much there. It's kind of a lot of Bandai published games kind of go one of the two ways of extremes. They're either like extremely well received or they just kind of flash in the pan kind of thing. But moving on to Konami published these, didn't even know that. Saw 1 and 2. I don't believe these tie. I think they tie into the movies. I think they're their own thing. Um, but yeah, these were the only two Saw games, to my knowledge, that were made on the 360. I don't think they did any more. But I remember playing. I think it was Saw 2. They had a demo on the 360. I remember playing that like maybe 2 or 3 times. Obviously, as a kid, didn't have disposable income, so I couldn't pick up every game that interested me. But they're definitely flawed games, but there's also nothing really like them. They kind of blended in decent puzzle gameplay and stuff, but there was the combat is woeful in both games, which I remember. Um, I've not finished either of them, so that's probably going to be ones that I do later down the line. But yeah, Saw 1 and 2. Right. Scars Above, Prime Matter published, Madhead Games. Very ambitious for what it is. I don't know how much budget this commanded, but it's a fairly pretty looking game. It's kind of I hate like using it as like the go-to for it. It kind of had Souls-like-esque combat, but not traditional. It was like taking inspiration for I think a lot of games try to ape that kind of combat loop system. Um, to better or worse. That's down to the person playing it to decide. But interesting concept. I did about 4 hours into it and ended up putting it down. Not sure if I'll jump back in the foreseeable future, but it's decent. It's a decent game. One that's also always on sale, I see as well. Ooh. Right, moving on, Skull Nexus again back with Bandai. They publish so many games, and this is one of their better published games, in my opinion. Obviously, it's opinions individual, so maybe you didn't enjoy this as much, but this was cool. This was kind of like Devil May Cry meets Nier meets I don't even know what else you'd add to that. That's kind of like the perfect duo kind of thing. It had crazy like telekinesis powers. You had a like two-part story mode. So I can't remember the names of the characters. You had her and then you had him, and you could choose between playing as either of them. And it had like Um, it's like a cyberpunk-esque setting. There's all stuff to do with like memories and stuff. It's just really cool, interesting game. I did about the opening 10 hours of it. It's something I really need to go back to. I believe I played this on Xbox One first, and the the telekinesis powers of throwing stuff absolutely made that console scream in agony. So never ended up going back to it. So one that I do need to go back to. So weirdly enough, this is one of the only remaining games in my collection that has remained sealed. I'm not sure how long it will remain sealed for. We have Scorn, um, very divisive game. Obviously, heavily inspired by H.R. Geiger, and Alien and stuff like that. Very body horror-esque. But like style aside, which is incredible. The actual moment-to-moment gameplay in this game is just arse. It's just bad. The combat is bad. The puzzles are, I would also throw in and say bad. It's just, you started so strong with style over what you wanted the game to look like, and then it felt like everything else kind of slipped through their fingers a bit. So I made it about halfway through the game and just got frustrated by the combat. I thought the combat was terrible. So not sure if that's going to ever get cracked, but that's quite rare on Xbox as well. Um, oh, I say that. This is also sealed. Didn't know that was also sealed still. Sea of Stars. I think this, like Scorn, was a day one Game Pass drop, if I remember correctly. Um, People seem to really enjoy this. I haven't played it myself yet. I didn't end up diving in and trying it on Game Pass. But just another like kind of turn-based RPG. Um, Not even sure what like the premise is, but I'm always down for like more turn-based RPGs. This will probably be one that I try in the near future and see how it is. Right, we're in our last little stack here. And that will be this video wrapped up. So let's go. Right, section 8. Um, I haven't played this myself. This was one that I picked up in the final months of the store closure again. You're gonna hear that a lot. But I remember the thing I remember seeing of it was it says here, burn in to battle from 15,000 feet and land anywhere you choose. I believe you could like start from orbit and land and stuff like that, and it kind of reminded me of Medal of Honor. Was it Airborne that did that, where you was able to parachute in and basically tackle the mission in whatever way that you wanted to. So that was kind of cool. All right, moving on. Shadow Tactics. Blades of the Shogun. Um, Not one I've dove into myself yet. And it's the thing where because it's on a console, like I would love to play this and earn achievements on it, but I can't stand playing like these types of games on a controller. They just don't feel good to play. So if this was one that like I need to look because I've been actually going through and downloading games that have achievements on the Microsoft Store on PC. If this is one of them that does have that as a support, I'm definitely going to download it. It'd be one I'd love to play. But yeah. Right. Shadowrun. I believe this was a reboot. Originally a CRPG-esque game, I believe, right? You had a Shadowrun Hong Kong, Shadowrun Returns, and there was another one. There was three games because they all got recently HD remasters. And I believe that this is from the same series. That isn't a CRPG. I think it's just a traditional action game. I guess. I haven't played it myself, but by the looks of it, it just looks like a traditional action game. Um, Looks cool though and interesting. I'm pretty sure that people may have not been warm to it when it came out because if you go from being a traditional CRPG-esque game and then changing genres that hard, it doesn't usually end well, and that's probably why we've not seen another entry in the series since. Um, Shadow's Awakening, a really interesting kind of Diablo-like esque game because you have, I think it's on the right. So you have these like ethereal things. So you have him and that and stuff. So it's like think of when you choose a character in Diablo, but you're locked into that character. In this game, you can choose between basically all classes at all times. You just transition and stuff like that. Really cool and unique premise. Haven't really seen anybody do that. Um, did about the opening 4 hours of it and need to get back to it. Oh boy, good old Frogwares. The masters of making Sherlock Holmes games. I don't believe I play. I think I played like. So I remember buying this from a what do you call it? From a pre-owned shop, and then trading it back in the day because it would have been probably like 2010 that I did that, and this required way too much thought for my dumb ass back then. Ended up picking it back up a few years ago. I'll probably jump into it. I do love Sherlock Holmes. Um, Now that a little bit older and like to do a bit of thinking and stuff. And also just love Frogwares as a developer. I think they do amazing stuff. So definitely dive into that. The only Civ game to land on the 360, I believe. Because they did the backwards. Because you had Sid Meier's Pirates. I don't know if that was. I think that was original Xbox though. I don't think that was 360. But you had Civilization Revolution. Um, Definitely much simpler than a traditional Civ game. They kind of dumbed it down as you would expect for console audiences, but it's 100%ed. Um, did every single civilization, beat the game on the hardest difficulty, did all the challenges and stuff. Really, really loved this game. Really love this game. Um, would love to see like a continuation because as much as I love Civ, that kind of like simplicity can sometimes do it like wonders and stuff. Sometimes I don't need every single detail, given to me in a strategy game. I don't mind scaling it back a bit every now and then. But we have Sifu up next. So Microids published, Slow Clap developer. The martial arts game. Brandon really clicked with this one, I believe. It's one I was enjoying, but I don't know why I bounced off. It had to have been something else came out and drew me away from it because I was enjoying the combat. The loop of even when you're defeated and stuff, your stats basically go one way to the other. So you lose max HP, but you do more damage, kind of thing. As you get older and wiser, that's how they tackle it. Really cool. Really cool game. One that I'll definitely finish for sure. And one that last year finally ended up going back to Silent Hill HD Collection and finished up Silent Hill 2. Um, and it probably is, I would consider in the top three all-time best horror games I've ever played. Granted, there aren't as many as other people. And then I tried to jump straight into Silent Hill 3, and it didn't click with me. maybe it's because I do have a lot of trouble with jumping straight onto a game back to back. It's like a similar genre, even if it's a sequel in this case and stuff, and that doesn't usually work out for me. So that might not be Silent Hill 3's fault. It might just be my own fault of how I enjoy consuming content. But Silent Hill 2 was so damn good from top to bottom. And the only other Silent Hill game I own is Silent Hill Homecoming. No idea uh, the quality of this game. Have never heard anybody utter its name, really. So one that I'll probably experience myself whenever I decide to go and check it out. Don't know if it's backwards compatible or not. I don't know if this is stuck on the 360. It'll be unfortunate if it is. I hope it's not. But one that I'll definitely give a go in the future. And finally, the last game we land on is the Sims 4. So I enjoyed The Sims 3 on PC many, many, many moons ago. I think I just enjoyed the gimmick of it back in the day as a kid. Doesn't really do anything for me now. This was one where, so it at least has a story with it, which will make it a little bit interesting. Tesco used to stock physical games where I used to live, like fairly. There was tons of them. Basically, they had a massive collection, and years went by, and it slowly got dwindled down until they just completely, unless it was Call of Duty or FIFA, they just didn't end up selling it anymore. And when they did their clearance and stuff, they absolutely price slashed. And this was, I think, picked up for like £2, something crazy. So I'm not going to turn it down for that low of a low of a price. But yeah, it's not something that I particularly enjoy as much anymore. So, yeah, right. So there you go. That is, God, that's this shelf, and then we just have three shelves left. So, and then we can move on to other stuff and talk about other stuff and do other video ideas and stuff like that. Lots of stuff. All right. Thank you very much for watching. And make sure to check out Unnecessary Rambling if you somehow stumbled on this channel before stumbling on his, as we do a ton of other stuff over there. I frequent myself on there quite a lot. And Discord. Always forget to shout this out on his channel and my channel. We have a Discord there. We're 12 people strong now, and if you enjoy talking about games, feel free to ask for an invite in there. The more people in there, the better. And what we do is we talk about anything game related. We post pickups in there, post recent clears and recent 100%s. And then there's also something that I undertake personally because I enjoy like the statistics side of things. I keep for everybody that posts what they clear in the tabs and everything, we keep a yearly clear list and break it down month by month for people. So if that's of interest to you, if you like talking and stuff like that, feel free to join. Pop me a message down in the comments, and I'll respond to it. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.